Hi Didi, unfortunately we could not record yesterday for whatever reasons. I think I got lazy, you also got lazy, and
Yeah,
possibly we were enjoying the winters and the weekend.
yeah. I was back after a grueling 2 hours practice session of tennis, and after that, my body just didn't give up. Just
Yeah,
didn't
but
allow.
Didi, I'm really looking forward to you now beating Gaurav Jain in lawn tennis.
No, no. He's a very good player. Let's not go there.
At,
But yeah,
at, at
at least
least
I think I after a few months of practice, I can perhaps compete with him in
at
tennis.
least looking forward to you adding a significant number to your score line. Okay, so Didi, today I know that we will discuss a little bit about the South Africa and Pakistan Syria first test match in Karachi, and I would like obviously to focus on the story, uh, which is the story of Pakistan cricket right now, which is the story of Fawad Alam. Uh, but before that, Didi, I have a surprise for you. So I am going to give you certain situations, and I am going to ask you to pick a player from world cricket, from around the world cricket, who you would want to come in and play in that situation.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so it is a Chennai track, day three. The first inning of both the team has been like even Stevens. Uh, there is a uh, difference of about 20-25 runs. This is the first inning. In the second innings, the team is playing and the team is 10 for 2. The pitch has just about started to break down. Some balls are spinning, some balls are not, but it is a good batting track overall. But there is enough confusion created by the pitch so that the batsmen are careful enough. The opposition has, say, spinners like I will say Ravi Ashwin and Ravindra Jadeja are bowling. Okay, for example, Ravi Ashwin and Ravindra Jadeja are bowling. These are the two spinners that you will have to face, along with the likes of there is fast bowlers are Bumrah and Mohammad Shami. Okay, so this is the
Hmm.
bowling attack, and the opposition is 10 for 2. Now, minus any Indian batsman from across the world, who would you want to put up and in this situation to bat?
And I have the option of choosing
Whole
only
world.
amongst current cricketers, right? Not retired cricketers.
Okay, current only. Because if you bring in retired cricketers, then it
Hmm. Hmm.
why don't you start by choosing from the big three?
No,
Say
I'm
you
just thinking through.
say you have the option of Steve Smith, Joe Root, and Ken Williamson. These three
Yeah,
batsmen.
yeah, I was thinking actually on those lines only.
Ah. Did it
Uh,
supposed to be a rapid fire?
Kane Williamson and Joe Root.
Ken Williamson, Joe Root, and Steve Smith. Who will you choose to come in to bat in this situation?
Kane Williamson.
Ken Williamson. Why? Why not Joe Root or
Uh,
Steve Smith?
I know Joe Root is bats well against the spinners, sweeps well, and all of those things. But amongst the three, I think given the situation, Kane Williamson is a more balanced player with
Hmm.
across both spin and pace. Number one. Number two, I think Kane Williamson plays a little late relatively to both these two players.
I agree. I agree. He plays the ball under the
So, and
absolutely.
number three, he has the calmest head amongst all the three players. So at 10 for 2, I would want a calm head.
Fair enough, Didi. Next situation. Uh, the test match is being played in the Edgbaston. There is barely a difference between the outfield and the pitch. The pitch is so green. Conditions are overcast, and the bowlers who are bowling uh, is, of course, James Anderson and Stuart Broad. And there is a third bowler who is waiting to bowl first change, whose name is Jofra Archer. Both the openers have been bundled out by Stuart Broad, like always, and the score is similar. Okay, nothing for two or something like that. And you want it? It is the first inning, the first morning. Who is going to be your next batsman? Steve
Virat
Smith,
Kohli.
Virat Kohli, or Kane Williamson?
Virat Kohli.
Okay, and why would you say so?
Because you're asking me the question in 2021. Virat Kohli had a lot of things to prove in his last England tour, and he has done that.
Mm-hmm.
And out of sheer confidence, I will put in Virat Kohli.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Now, my third situation to you is let me take you to Johannesburg, the sort of pitch that India won the match against South Africa when Srishant played. Okay. So a good batting track, but with a lot of up and down and consistent seam movement throughout the day. It is the fourth inning. The victory target is about 220. It is a day 4 pitch. You can say the session is the last session on day 4. So the result is definitely possible. Okay. Uh, I One of the teams will win, and you are up against uh, a Dale Steyn, a Rabada. So these two are your main threats. Okay, right there. And the team is say 60 for 3. Okay, the team is 60 for 3, and about 20-25 overs they have been bowled in the test match. So the ball is relatively newish. And who would you then want to come in and play? And you're going
Ben
for a
Stokes.
win, of course.
Ben
Ben,
Stokes.
okay, great choice. Great choice. I think I also will agree. But Ben Stokes, the kind of because it's a shorter target, and Ben Stokes is a really exuberant player. If he gets going, then he gets going. I mean, there is no stopping. Brilliant choice. Let me give you a last situation. We are playing in the windy Wellington. The pitch has flattened out, by the way. Okay, this is the fourth inning, but there is a massive deficit of about 400 runs. So the target is 400 something, and you are up against your current New Zealand attack. Tim Southey and the classic Wagner and the new guy Jameson and all of that. And I will throw in another fast bowler, say Matt Henry. Okay, so New Zealand is bowling with their quartet. The pitch has flattened out, but the target is about 420 runs, and you have about 120 overs to bat. The first wicket has fallen at the loss of 50 runs, and there is still about 90 odd overs to go. So, who is going to be your best batsman to come in? And this is, I will say, last session of day 4. Okay, you still have about 10-15 overs to go, and the next day you have about 90 overs to negotiate. Who is going to be your batsman?
It's a very tricky situation because with that attack in that conditions, 420 is not chaseable. Because if I were the captain, then I would have had to take a choice between save the match or go for the or win the match, right? Now 420 with almost a day's play, even with Sehwag at the crease is difficult. Which means that I have to save the test match, and to save the test match, you need somebody like a Pujara. But Pujara's technique with the moving ball has been a little bit circumspect. So who is the next best alternative to Pujara, if not Pujara, if I have to save a test match, right?
Don't say Ravi Ashwin.
No, I will not say Ravi Ashwin. But in current cricket, current cricket at a New Zealand pitch.
Let me suggest the pitch has flattened out relatively. That is also there.
Then I'll perhaps go for a safe choice of Steve Smith, because Steve Smith is actually difficult to get out. if he's in. So it's a toss up between Smith, Pujara, and
What if you had the choice to bring in Faf du Plessis?
I was thinking Faf du Plessis. Faf du Plessis. He's also not a very bad choice. But between du Plessis, Smith, and because the point is here, I'm sure I'm going for a draw.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you're going for a draw, then you have to find somebody who can block out the, nullify their attack. But the problem is that you can't nullify this attack because you have attack replacements are also equally good. So you need people with very, very high concentration, and that is why I said Pujara at the beginning. So it's a toss up between Pujara, Smith, and perhaps du Plessis or Root.
So
I'll still go with Smith.
Tell me who your choice is going to be.
I will go with Smith.
All right. One final situation. It just came to my mind. Okay, a test match is being played in Dubai. Okay, it's a first day wicket, beautiful batting wicket. Okay, but unfortunately, the batting team that won the toss and decided to bat has lost 2 quick wickets for 20 runs. Okay, and you are against a bowling attack, say Pat Cummins, Josh Hazelwood, Nathan Lyon, and Pattinson. Let's drop Mitchell Starc for this match. Okay. Now you know that it's a good batting track, but these guys have been able to get your openers out. Who is going to be a batsman? And my choices are, I will give you 5 choices. Babar Azam, Virat Kohli, Joe Root, Kane Williamson. I'm not giving you the choice of Steve Smith because for whatever reasons. These are your 4 choices: Babar Azam, Virat Kohli, Joe Root, and Kane Williamson.
Virat Kohli.
You would play with Virat Kohli.
Yeah, okay. No doubt about it.
Fantastic. One final question: Who is the best player to play good quality spin on a spinning track in a dust bowl? Virat, Kane Williamson, Steve Smith, or Joe Root? Out of these 4.
You have to go with Kohli, right? Born and brought up in these kind of pitches. There's no doubt about one. Number 2 would be a toss up between Williamson and Root, but I think Williamson is also equally very good at playing the spinners. I know Root is extremely good. He's done very well in Sri Lanka and even otherwise.
It's a tough
toss up between Williamson and Root, but there is no doubt in my mind who is number 1, Kohli.
Virat Kohli. Great. So with that, Didi, we come to an end of our hypothetical round. Thank you so much for lending your thoughts. Now let's quickly get into the test match that happened between Pakistan and South Africa. First of all, welcome signs for Pakistan that finally test cricket has started. It is not good that a country like Pakistan gets devoid of opportunities to play test cricket at home.
Yeah.
So that's a really
for the people.
Yeah.
For the people, it is a very, very
and I think
welcome change.
Yeah, even from touring teams. So, for example, generally we say that it is difficult to tour Sena nations. It is also very difficult to tour the South Asia, or the subcontinent. Now, currently, if Pakistan is out, people are not traveling to Pakistan. That basically that reduces it to India, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. The state of Bangladesh and Sri Lanka cricket, with all due respect, the quality is not there. And therefore, I think Pakistan coming back as a test venue, it's a good sign for the subcontinent also.
Absolutely, and you cannot even take away the place of Pakistan in the history of this, in the history of cricket. It's produced, great teams, great individuals, great all-time players, and great characters. So it's absolutely brilliant for the for the people over there that they're getting cricket after 13 years in Test cricket. Aleem Dar finally got a chance to officiate in a Test match at home after 132 Test matches away from home.
Yeah.
So yes, great for the nation, and of course, great for them that they could win that test match after their lower order batted tremendously to, in fact, create a lead of over 170 runs. I think 160, 170 runs, which eventually proved too much for South Africa. So yeah, good for Pakistan cricket, and of course, they have never been short of talents. Something very unique I kind of observed in that 11 was that there were 4 players named Ali who played in that 11, and I think the last time it happened in international, I'm not sure about it, but I still think that the last time this happened in international cricket, that 4 players of the same surname played was again by Pakistan only when the Muhammad brothers, Hanif Muhammad, Shoaib Muhammad, and all the Muhammad brothers, Mustaq Muhammad, played together.
Okay.
So that was an interesting bit of trivia from
Yeah,
that
interesting
match.
piece of trivia actually.
Yes, of course, followed by Fawad Alam's 100. So I think that definitely was the talking point of the match.
I do have faint memories of Fawad Alam from the previous decade. It's almost funny when I say it. I remember he was a chirpy young all-rounder. He used to
I
bowl
think
a little bit.
you don't mean the previous decade. You mean, because the previous decade is one year ago.
Yeah,
So you mean
I mean the decade to the previous decade. Yeah,
uh,
11 years ago, I remember Fawad Alam used to be in the team, a very limited player at that point of time. I remember he used to do some left arm spin and lower order batting. And I know that over the years, he has sort of his stature in Pakistan, uh, you know, Qaid-e-Azam trophy is very similar to that of what VVS Lakshman used to enjoy in Ranji Trophy in India, or even Ajinkya Rahane, the sort of record that he has in Ranji, or Cheteshwar Pujara. He's absolutely dominated. He has an average of close to 56, 57 for a period of 10 years, which is not a joke. And Pakistan is also known to produce variety of pitches. There are fast
yeah,
pitches in Pakistan, then there are spinning pitches in Pakistan, and then there are absolute run feast of a pitches in Pakistan as well. And I was just going through the breakup of Fawad Alam over the years. The lowest that he has averaged in the last decade in the domestic circuit is 42. That is his lowest average. And so while and I think the beauty of sports is that it makes for wonderful stories, and I think Fawad Alam's stories is one of it.
you're right, absolutely. And you have to give it to those cricketers who toil hard in the domestic circuit and for
Yeah,
some reason or the other don't get the opportunity to play at the highest level. But perseverance pays off, and there have been numerous stories across world cricket where people have done tremendously well in first class matches, only to get a chance later on in their career. Even if you see Mike Hussey debuted for Australia, I think almost in his late 20s or early 30s
yeah. I think he
in
was
Test cricket.
29 or something when he
30.
made a debut.
And
29
look at
or
the way he although it's a different discussion that he was part of a team that was a world beating team,
mm,
but even then he just sailed into the team, and that was not just because of his ability, but I think the mountain of runs he had in first class cricket
yeah,
also contributed, which was also similar to uh, the way Damien Martin, Matthew Hayden,
yeah,
Justin Langer in their second avatar for Australia
absolutely.
flourished so well.
And
So yes, but good thing is that uh, he made the most of it, because what can happen is that a failure here and there would have perhaps permanently got him out of the team.
uh, and it
But
happened with Fawad na, when he came back. He got to bat in bloody England in swinging conditions,
yeah,
and he was out LBW to Chris Wokes with his unique stance that he has these days. And I think one of the reasons that Pakistan selectors always gave for not selecting Fawad Alam was the perceived lack of technique in his batting, that he would be found out. And when eventually he was given a chance, he was actually not given a chance in areas of his or anybody's strength. He was given a chance in England where he failed immediately. It just brings me to a point that sometimes I think the conventional definition of success, or how success is to be achieved in sport, it leads to a myopia. So, for example, if I'm looking at the perceived look and feel of a technique of a batsman or a bowler, uh, there is a textbook definition of things: how a batsman should defend, what should be the stance, how one should cover the line of the ball or stay beside it, depending on the situations and things like that. A batsman like Steve Smith, he's a write-off if I go to the textbook, because then he should be getting out every second ball the way he plays. He has created a way for himself not only to succeed but to dominate. And believe me, for the first 5 years, 6 years of Steve Smith's career, when he was doing so, and still is doing so well, when he was doing so well, I, as a cricket fan, would wait for Steve Smith to fail, so that the theories of cricket are proven right. And I think a similar thing has happened with Fawad Alam, is that similar yardsticks were used for him. Imagine if India used a similar yardstick for Jasprit Bumrah with the kind of bowling action he has. I mean, I know that experts said that Bumrah will be no good in Test cricket. He's massively open-chested. His run-up is such that his body will break down. He will not be able to take the brunt of bowling 30 overs in a day and all of that and whatnot. And I know that Bumrah is only 20 Test matches old, but he will walk into any Test 11. So the point is that sometimes the conventional definitions, they really sway us from identifying the effectiveness of the results also.
I'll give you a very simple, first of all, I'm not a, batting coach or a person who is technically equipped to, talk in a technical way. But from whatever I have followed the game and played a little bit in, college circles and all whatever, I can, and even if I have not played that, the point that I'm trying to say is, say you're talking about a game, right? Any game, say football, cricket, tennis, whichever game. Now, any game has an end objective, right? The end objective is for you to, if you are a batsman, you have to score runs. Now, some laws have been formulated, or some, of course, there is a basic technique of how do you make those runs, right? Now, I still remember Gavaskar saying a lot of times in his in interviews, or even he has written, that when he used to bat in the Bombay Maidans, if they used to hit a ball in the air, they were penalized.
Yeah.
Right. Now the point is, if I am asked to go and score there, if I keep on scoring runs, no one will, even my bad technique will become good, or it will become the benchmark of innovation. What they used to talk about Sehwag, right? Like Sehwag doesn't have the copybook technique of an opener, yet will walk into the Indian all-time 11 as an opener. So the point is, if you are effective, you are good. No, everyone will talk good about you.
Yeah.
And will say that, yeah, this person is like, wow, what Steve Smith is doing, right? Any coach will not teach you the technique of a Steve Smith, right? Whereas they will teach you how Tendulkar, played the square cut, or the, cover drive or straight drive, because that's from the coaching manual. So if you are able to improvise and do what is needed to done, because at the end of the day, cricket is a very simple game. You need to take 20 wickets. You need to
score runs.
Score runs. Simple. It's simple mathematics.
So that your bowlers have enough time to take 20 wickets.
Yes. Now, if I, as a coach, I'm talking now here again, I'm bringing in my perspective of my professional, work that I do around the philosophy of strengths-based development. In fact, just to give you a background, Paddy Upton, you definitely know him.
Yeah.
One of the finest
Mental conditioning coaches.
performance coaches. He wrote a book called The Barefoot Coach, and in one of the chapters, he devoted an entire chapter to Gallup's theory about the strengths-based psychology, where you actually allow people to, play to their strengths at a scientific level. That's what kind of one of the areas of work that I do. So if something comes to somebody naturally, and that natural thing is yielding the result, why will I change something because it is there in the theory? If it is, if that person starts failing, then of course I'll look into it and figure out why he's failing. But if something is bringing me success 60-70% of the time, and that is my natural intention, because my development as an individual is different from your development as an individual. How I see the ball, how I react to things, how I do a lot of things, right? And your batting is there a reflection of your mind at the end of the day. So I know that Fawad Alam and Steve Smith and Virendra Sehwag are the odd ones out in today's world, but such is the media pressure, and the pressure today to perform is huge, right? If you're not performing, you are being criticized by somebody who perhaps never have watched a game or played a cricket, but will still criticize you.
Yeah, that's
You'll have to, as a player, you'll have to take these in your chin and move ahead, right? Which is why you see a lot of players, a lot of tennis players in the 80s, 90s used to say that, I think Borg used to say that he didn't even look at what the newspaper at the time was saying about him. So how you kind of remove all of those distractions and still perform? The bottom line being, if you are performing, आपका जो technique है वही महान है. If you are not performing, even with the technique, you might have the best technique in the world. People will not talk about you. You will be dropped and all those things. So, boom, if you're scoring runs, everything falls into place. Theories get kind of adapted to ensure that they write good things about you.
Yeah.
So, everything said, all due respect to Fawad Alam, I had shared a photograph of him in one of my WhatsApp groups with a unique stance that Fawad Alam was, it looked as if he was waiting for a stance to be, the bowler, it stopped the bowler just a wait, but it was actually his stance. So all credit to him, and as long as he scores runs, you can't say anything.
Absolutely. And brilliant story, and I think amazing mental strength shown by him. You really need to be passionate about the game to be playing for so long, excelling without getting picked up to play for the national side, which really means that this guy just loves to play the game. It doesn't matter where he is playing. It could be gully cricket for all you know, but he just loves to be in the cricket ground. Fabulous. Now that takes me to the another point, and I just wanted to discuss. I wanted to have your overall view on South Africa's batting. Overall, I think over the years, in the last 2, 3, 4 years, if you will see, the quality of batting of South Africa has declined, and the new recruits, they aren't really firing that well. And I have a theory behind it, and I will present my theory. But first, I will invite you for your opinion. I think this test match also, it was a fairly good toss for them to win, and then to get out for 220 in subcontinent on a day one pitch, and one, you have to lose the test match from there.
Look, I think Norman Ali was making his debut and he was bowling very, I had watched the entire, I didn't watch the match. I couldn't watch the entire match. Of course, I watched the match in bits and pieces, but I did go through the highlights quite a few number of times. I think if you ask me, the first thing, of course, Fawad Alam's story was the story of the match, right? But what really, I am a purist at heart somewhere, which is why apart from my, fascination for Roger Federer, I still like tennis to be played on grass. It's just a purist mind, and bringing that analogy back to cricket, Yasir Shah's bowling, I somehow really like the way he. Very few leg spinners have been able to kind of generate that much amount of uh, you know viewing pleasure after Shane Warne retired. Yasir Shah brings in that, and that's my personal choice. But if you see his first innings wicket of
Yeah, it was a
Duplessis,
good wicket. Yeah, it was a good
it
wicket.
was a beautiful.
That's the only ball that turned all day.
Yeah, it was a beautiful delivery. It reminded me of some of the victims that Shane Warne used to take, with his drift, getting the batsman to move forward, and then the ball beautifully turns and goes to first slip.
And then I think
Yasir Shah was bowling.
And the second inning also.
He was bowling all flippers, and
yeah.
many of them were bowls. So Yasir Shah has that variation, and as a spinner, and he has the classical leg spinners, turn, bounce, variety, which you feel like watching again and again in a test match, right? Yeah. So I think that for me was definitely another story at par with Fawad Alam, because watching a classical leg spinner bowling beautiful spells. I still remember an incident from the mid 90s where Basit Ali was batting against Shane Warne in a test match in Australia, and Ian Healy was the keeper. Healy noticed there was a gap between Basit Ali's bat, both the legs. He came to Shane Warne and said that there is a gap. Warne bowled the next ball in that gap, and Basit Ali was bowled between his legs. Those are memories. Like that was just growing up, initial days of watching cricket. And somehow Shane Warne revived leg spin as an art. Of course, Anil Kumble was there. He was a different kind of a bowler, but uh, Yasir Shah gives me that feeling of watching a leg spinner again and again with a classical, with the variations, with all of those things. So that I think was also a factor in South Africa's batting, because Norman Ali and Yasir Shah were practically unplayable in the second innings after South Africa consolidated this with the third wicket partnership. Yeah. What also was a little baffling was that there were quite a few left-handers in the South African squad. They were not able to play Norman Ali in a very, very proper way.
Yeah, now,
because it was a left arm bowler, orthodox spinner, with the ball coming inside you. Somehow, I felt that they should have played him a little better, but they were really uncomfortable playing against him. Yeah. Of course, I think both of them took 9 wickets between them in the second innings. But coming back to South Africa's batting, I think Duplessis somehow needs to convert. Because he is that glue. He is the one who is keeping the balance between the past and the present. He got a start, but in the first innings he could not capitalize. Although he got a very good ball, I think. But Duplessis needs to hold fort. Van der Woesten played a good innings in the second innings, but I think their openers are good. But Temba Bavuma is again a great talent, but he's not been.
Yeah, I think Bavuma is not playing the right number in the batting lineup. He's not playing.
And something is wrong with Quinton de Kock. He's a huge mercurial talent, but I don't know what's wrong with him.
I don't think that de Kock is up for the challenge of captaincy, wicket keeping, and then batting at number 5. Not altogether. That's what I feel. If he's a swashbuckling wicket keeper,
there's a lot of
yeah, he should bat number 6 or number 7, and Bavuma should not be batting number 6. No, Bavuma is not a striker of the ball. I mean, you at number 6 you need a batsman who can also counter attack and play with the tail. Bavuma right now is playing for his own place in the side, if I may say so. After playing 43 test matches, his average is just about 30-31, which is not good for a batsman who's at least rated by the experts as a really good batter internally in South Africa circuit. But did he, over the last 3-4 years, what I've seen is, batsmanship, it needs to be developed as a culture, And one of the key aspects of test batsmanship is your ability to score big runs and play long innings. Many years ago, I was reading an article in Sports Star where Craig McMillan had said that there is a reason why New Zealand does not produce great batsmen on a continual basis. Is because the nature of our pitches is such that it does not allow for greater batsmanship. Uh, they are so difficult pitches that our batsmen do not know how to play 200 balls, 250 balls, 300 balls, and play the long innings, because it is not only about the pitches, it's also about getting the practice to play a long innings. It doesn't matter what nature of pitch it comes on to. And I think that is where the subcontinental batsmen, they are really good, because uh, all of them, or most of the batsmen which we see, they have the ability to play, or they've had played longish innings before coming to international. Even Ravindra Jadeja has three triple centuries under his belt, and he bats number 7,
Mm.
number 8 for India, right? And I think
Mm.
South Africa in the last 3-4 years, if you will see the kind of pitches that they've prepared for all the oppositions, while it has obviously
Mm.
posed challenges to the opposition batsmen, it also has
Mm.
posed challenges to South African batsmen equally. And if you look at the entire batting lineup, none of them are sort of averaging above 45 or 42. Most of the averages are lingering somewhere between 30 and 40, which is not good for a test side. As a test unit, or even in the domestic circuit, there needs to be good balance between the bat and the ball. Otherwise, your batsmen will forget the habit of how to play a long inning. What happens when you get a placid pitch, where say getting out is not difficult? It is not difficult, but at the same time, run scoring is also not very easy. So then, how do you pace your innings? How do you play out 180, 200 balls to get a century and things like that? Because if your pitches are so bad, or so bowler friendly, or so seam friendly, the tendency is that I possibly will not survive 200 balls. So let me play some attacking cricket. Let me make a counter attacking 60, 70, which in the context of the match will have great value. But when you continue to do that on a repeated basis, as a bunch, uh, you know, uh, as a species, your collective batting ability will go down. And that has exactly, in my opinion, what has happened with South African batting over the last 3-4 years.
It's a very interesting point of view that you've brought in. Yes, now when I think back at it, you see the tons of runs that a lot of cricketers have scored in first class cricket. In fact, if you look back at Brian Lara,
Yeah.
he scored a 375 at Port of Spain. He also scored 500 for Durham, right?
Yeah, 501 in England, and then he backed
Yeah.
it up with a 400, another 400 run innings.
No, no. Of course, Brian Lara is not a norm, but I'm just giving you an example. If you have to score runs at a very high, may not be triple hundreds and quadruple hundreds, but at least double hundreds and
Even,
the higher
yeah,
hundreds in things.
even
Yeah.
hundreds, Did because see, the right now what I see is that in general, obviously, test batsmanship, it has gone. There are only a few people, and I think technology has had a part to play as well, because then
You
it's
have been worked out also, no? You have
absolutely
been
there are.
worked out. But
Yes,
again, the other good thing is that if you look at it from that perspective, uh, it has ensured that you have more results in test cricket,
yeah, but
and it has
see
made it more
that
crowd friendly
yeah,
and all those things.
that's not the point. I'm saying that there needs to be good balance between bat and ball, and somewhere South Africa board, they have to look into the quality of pitches that they are preparing. You remember most of the series which has been played in South Africa, including the very recent one where they played Sri Lanka. The nature of the pitch was such that even when people were scoring centuries, it was not a controlled inning that people were. It was not a well thought, well paced innings. People were just, batsmen were going after the bowling and scoring some runs. Even Sri Lanka scored some 380 or 390 on day one, right? But was it all
Hmm.
controlled? No, because the nature of the pitch, it does not encourage the batsman to pace the innings, to play out 150 balls, to play out a 200 balls, and to construct a proper
But
innings.
it was more or less the similar, pitches that produced Graeme Smith, Jack Callis,
No, no.
AB
So
de Villiers,
I will beg to differ
right?
from that, Didi, because the nature of the pitches, I agree, it used to be challenging. But you remember the sort of pitches that India were dished out when they were traveling to South Africa, which was Bumrah's debut series. So there were pitches, but it also allowed for good batting. It would flatten out
Yeah,
on
yeah.
day two,
South
on day
African pitches
three.
have good bounce, and
Absolutely.
I'm saying
But
that they had cricketers who could bat the entire day, right?
it
They
was
had their Graeme Smiths, they had Gary Custon, they had Daryl Karinan,
so what
you
I'm
know,
saying is that
uh,
it has been aided. I think, see, when
they had
India,
Ashim Amla, right?
yeah, when
So,
India started to do over friendly spin tracks, there was, so in the yesteryears also, India used to do spinning tracks, but there would be first inning totals of 400, 450, 500, which allowed for great batsmanship. And the spin element only used to come into play on, say, late on day three, late on day four, when within sessions the match would turn, right? Within sessions.
but my point to you is not that. My point to you is that even if you put the South African team on a batting wicket,
Exactly.
do you think they will score
Yeah,
500
you
or
are
600?
absolutely right, Didi. So that is what I'm saying, that what has caused this is the fact that South Africa have started to prepare over friendly seam tracks, and sometimes dangerous also, to most of the countries which are visiting them, because they realize that possibly getting out the visitors was an easier option. And
Hmm.
what it does is that uh, it really smashes the batsman confidence also. So as a batting, as a collective batting unit, then you lose your ability, your habit over 3 4 years to score long and big runs. That is what it has done to the so you're absolutely right that will this South African batting attack be able to put up 400 runs on a batting track? And the answer is right here, they were put on, they got a chance to bat first in the subcontinent. They should have scored 450 runs, and Pakistan would have lost the test match from there. But because they've lost the ability, the imagine, see, Faf du Plessis, he got out to a gem, but the rest of the batsmen, the uh, the nature in which they got out, the first inning dismissal of uh, Quinton de Kock against Noman, he was trying to
I
tonk
know.
him over mid wicket, and he was playing his 20th ball.
Quinton de Kock, I think,
So
respected South African journalist Firdaus Munda. I really like the way she writes. She's written that I think it's time for Quinton de Kock to relieve him of the captaincy, because his captaincy was also found at fault. As in
I agree to
there were a
that.
lot of challenges.
I agree
And
to
she
that.
suggested that Dean Algar be given the captaincy for an intermediate, as in for the time being. So I don't somehow looking at Quinton de Kock, someone who is he. I'm not sure whether people who are with him will know. Somehow you look at certain cricketers, Rohit Sharma ko dekhoge, to you feel that this guy is calm. I mean, Dhoni
Yeah.
will exudes calmness. Virat Kohli exudes a kind of passion. But Quinton de Kock, when you look at him, you feel that he's stressed somehow. Uh, and I think captaincy has put more stress on him. So, and he's not being able to bat freely because he's a precocious talent as a batsman. So, I think Firdaus Munda, I would agree to what Firdaus Munda has said. Just relieve him of the captaincy and uh, make somebody else.
Yeah.
If Du Plessis is not your captain, make somebody else the captain.
And I think really for South Africa to go forward, the right way will be to produce pitches that also encourage good batting. Of late, they have not been doing enough of that, and now the result is
Too much
showing.
reliance on Ravada they have, right? So,
See, too much reliance on seeming conditions, and on bowling strength. Because when Vernon Philander used to bowl on such venomous pitches, with the kind of control and skill that he has, he's a great bowler, no doubt about it. A lot of people will say that the big one was a limited bowler. but I will disagree with them. But I, in order to play on one of your strengths, what South African cricket has done is that over the years they've really sacrificed their batsmen. And I remember there was a question which was asked to Faf du Plessis 3 4 years ago when India were traveling with Bhuvneshwar Kumar and Bumrah and all of those, and they lost that series 2-1. And I think India lost that series because of poor captaincy and selection. Nonetheless, there was a question which was asked to Faf du Plessis is that uh, does your dwindling batting return uh, gives you any worry, or the dwindling batting return of your overall batting unit? And he said that as long as we're winning test matches, I am fine. Yeah, you should be fine. But then what it has done is that now all your batsmen, they're, you pull out their averages, and none of their averages are world class batting averages. So statistics is also, it is showing that Temba Bavuma has played 43 test matches and scored only 1 century. It is showing that Quinton de Kock has only scored a few centuries, whereas he should have scored many by now. So one, even the leading century maker Faf du Plessis. See, it is a team game, but you need players to come in and score centuries. Fawad Alam came at number 6 and he scored centuries. You know why? Because he was scoring centuries every season in Pakistan. If he if he were averaging a 30 35, he would not have the confidence to come in and score, because they do it so many times. They know how to do it, and when they get the right chance, the right pitches, they convert it. But South
I
African
also
team,
think that Fahim Ashraf batted, better than Bavuma.
yeah,
And not just because of the runs he made,
Fahim Ashraf
not just
bats
because of the runs he made.
beautifully. He's got
Yes, I'm not.
lovely elegance to his batting.
Yeah, and he batted, and Keshav Maharaj is a brilliant bowler.
Yeah,
Let's not, forget the way he batted against Maharaj. I think uh, he looked way better than Bavuma looked on the crease.
see, that is the
So
depth of the batting lineup that the host countries always get to enjoy.
yeah.
So Fahim Ashraf playing spin better, Sam Curran playing pace better, batting at number 8, nothing to lose. And
Imagine a situation where I think today I was reading the Times of India where they were saying that Washington Sundar might not get a chance in this Indian squad,
that's true.
despite Jadeja not being there.
Yeah,
So of course, the Indian bench strength is of course now at a level where we didn't think it will be. But that's a different discussion. But South African batting needs a lot to be. I think South African cricket needs to. It's perhaps on the right track, but with De Villiers gone and the kind of turmoil they were in, I
yeah,
just hope that they come back strongly. The
yeah. I
Sena
just
is no longer the S in Sena is has
yes,
become weak.
exactly. And I
Mm.
think so. It will only be good for cricket if South Africa bounce back and bounce back well. And now shifting focus to the England India. So I know that we are running short of time today, but we'll come back. And any new thoughts? See, my only thought on the England India series at this point of time is that I don't quite agree with the English board's rotation policy at this point of time.
Yeah, I also didn't understand that why will you have rotations when you are playing against India and the
And
team
it's,
ranked one in the.
yeah, and it is not that
No,
you
I have
played a
no.
lot of
I didn't
cricket in
understand
the
that.
past.
Maybe
It is also not that you've played a lot of cricket in the last 12 months. None of the
yeah.
teams have played a lot of cricket in the last 12 months. So I think it's an absolute folly, and I don't know what it will mean through the lens of a WTC being
Again,
online.
like as we talked with respect to the technique, if England win, all of this will be held as a masterstroke. So, but but on paper, it at least doesn't make sense to me. But who
No,
am I to question?
I wanted Johnny Bairstow to play in India because he absolutely, I think he's a fantastic player. He should play.
No, no, I really like the way Bairstow bats, and I think I was really sad when I told also some of my people, friends in a discussion that I felt that Bairstow should have been part of the England boards. They released the central contract I think late
Uh,
last year. I think Bairstow was not there or somebody. If I
okay,
think I'm right, but Bairstow was not there in the topmost category of the contract because he was not a regular in the test team.
okay.
Of course, his performance had not been that great, but I think Bairstow is a great talent to have in India. But of course, now with Butler, cementing his position as the keeper batsman, so it opens up for another batsman for England, and but with Stokes.
Well, I'm sure Joss Butler will
Back.
enjoy wicket keeping on Indian pitches, if not batting. He's a limited wicket keeper, but let's see how he comes through.
But he can change matches, right? So he can change matches, but I think
See,
with our bowling lineup,
India is a place where many great batsmen they've bitten dust, and many unknown names they've become great. That's the beauty of Indian cricket.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
in fact, just to end this show for today, if I ask you, started by asking me 5 questions. If I have to, I'll just put you on the spot, and that too extempore. So if I have to ask you, in the last 10 years, what has been your best innings in India played by, and I'll also give you my perhaps answer to this. In the last 10 years, what according to you has been the best knock played by an overseas batsman in India? Number one. And not necessarily it has to be the highest score.
Yeah.
According to you, the best knock given everything, whatever you remember of your mind. And which was the best spell by a visiting bowler in the last 10 years, according to you?
I think, very clearly, both the answers for me will go to the English side. I think Alistair Cook played wonderfully well against India in 2011, 12 or 12, 13 when they came and they absolutely hammered India in India. As a fan, I just thought that starting from the first test
You
match.
have to pick one innings and one spell.
So I think Alistair Cook, he scored a double century in the second test match. It was a defensive inning. And I just thought that England were going for a draw. And I think that was the inning that really defined the beauty of a good defensive knock for me in terms of how it sets test matches up. So for me, that would be the best inning. The second close options for me would be, I think in the same match, Kevin Pietersen scored a 180 or a 170, very stroke filled. But my vote will go to Alistair Cook, because had Alistair Cook been out, Kevin Pietersen's story could have been different. And then another inning that comes to my mind was in Pune, Steve Smith scored a century against India on an absolute dust bowl. And I would have given Steve Smith the best innings played by an overseas. The only reason I didn't give it to him, because there were 4 catches dropped of him. And I still feel that had India taken those catches, we would have won Pune. Which is why, if there are so many catches.
Pune was the match where Kerry O'Keefe took those wickets, right?
Yeah. Same match. Yes. Where India were 60 for nothing and then suddenly all out for 100.
Steve O'Keefe, sorry, not Kerry O'Keefe. Steve O'Keefe.
So if Steve Smith had played a chanceless inning on that dust bowl, I would have given it to Steve Smith. I know a lot of commentators and other people said that it is the best overseas inning, but for me, the best overseas inning was Alistair Cook, and the best spell for me would be Monty Panesar, no doubt. The way he bundled out India. The second best would be James Anderson. I remember in the same series there was an LBW setup that he did for the great Sachin Tendulkar. Bowling reverse swing out swingers and then bowling a beautiful straighter one. It was not an in swinger. It was just a straight ball that held the line slightly angled, and then it just hit Sachin on the front knee roll. I remember it was such a beautiful setup for a master batsman that he made him look silly. But yeah, I think Monty Panesar's spell in the second test match and beyond that also, and Alistair Cook's double century against India.
Nice choices. I would have, my favorite was Pietersen's 176, because
it was a close second for me.
But it's okay. I'm a Pietersen fan, but that just changed the way he played that innings. Of course, Cook was responsible for holding the other end, but Pietersen was just at a different level. And my favorite spell, I think, would perhaps be Monty Panesar as well. He was the difference between England.
Absolutely, India was dancing. They were not able to understand. They were going back to cut Monty Panesar, and they were getting bowled on arm balls. They were not able to pick him, read him at all.
Yeah. So yeah. So I think good choices, and I really like the way you explained and gave the rationale behind your choices. So it's always nice to discuss cricket with you, and looking forward for the next episode. By the time the Australian Open will have started. So
absolutely. So next Saturday, then let's do a little bit of tennis, and then obviously India England.
Yeah, we'll have the ATP Cup starting from tomorrow on the 2nd, I think.
Cool.
Where we have a great set of matches lined up. So looking forward to a cracking start to the year.
Okay, Didi. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.